I am so happy with how this looks for the Rangers. We have a pitcher, Jack Leiter, and he is a dude.
And while I do think his hitting is worse than Derek Jeter, it's not that far off.
You're not mentioning 2006. You can mention other people, not 2006.
Oh, just because I bought the best soap doesn't mean your room's going to be clean. It just leaves it to where I don't believe that the Canadians had a shot.
I really don't like the Clippers just kind of sending it in when they're like...
Hi, this is Kelly Forbes with the Dallas Stars, and listening to Outsiders Opinions with Kevin and Austin.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to our NHL Opinions of the Week. We've already talked about NHL free agency as a whole before this video. This one is focused on the Dallas Stars, who, yes, Austin and I are fans. I'm a fan of the Dallas Stars, but I do think just in the general NHL, this is a big moment for the Stars because they've been in 3 straight Western Conference Finals, and they decided to fire their coach, and they select Glenn Gulutzan, and then they're constantly against the cap. And one of that is from a lot of the moves they made. Matt Dumba is someone that was scratched. I don't know if he even played a playoff game. And they're trying to move him. And now I'm more interested in the Glenn Gulutzan hire. I like it, and I'm interested to see what he does. However, it is just a big risk because Pete DeBoer took the team to 3 straight Western Conference Finals, Austin.
True. And they've made it even further than that before DeBoer. And I think how DeBoer handled the end of the Oilers series with Ottinger's, I think why he's truly gone. Because I think it was going to be Ottinger or him, and you gotta bank on the guy you signed for another 8 years or however long it is. But do you have faith in the way this offseason and looking into next year pans out?
What would faith be like? I expect them to be in the Western Conference Finals.
Do you trust the quote unquote process?
Oh yeah, I trust Jim Nill, and to me this is a big risk, but I do think they have good players. I think a different coach would be helpful. Because I do agree DeBoer kind of made his bed and angered a lot of the players, but also it could just be a style thing. Like, I like the idea of Gulutzan, who, of course, had a great power play with Edmonton that was benefited from McDavid and Draisaitl, but they were worse. They were one of the worst power plays before he came and took over the power play, so there is evidence for him. But I do think there are new ideas, and there's a new way for the Stars to get better with just the players we have. We kind of saw it already with the transition from Rick Bowness to Pete DeBoer the first time they went to the Western Conference Finals and had a better offense because they had a change in philosophy from Bowness to DeBoer.
Sure, but is that change in offense gonna stick without just signing the guys? And also, I don't see how the blue line is going to be anywhere near what it was 2.5 seasons ago.
So my idea of the change in philosophy now is I would love it if they could keep similar offense to what they have, but I do think an emphasis is defense. Because to me, that has really been their problem. And you mentioned it with the blue line.
I just find that a little bit ironic because that was the problem before. Like, we look back to, like, the year they lost to Calgary in the first round. I believe that was 2022. 21-22. So, they lost to Calgary, and that was last year of Rick Bowness, and everyone was talking about how the change that was needed was offense. And so, they signed Pete DeBoer, and the offense gets substantially better. And in 22-23, they make the Western Conference Finals. That was probably their best chance. Jamie Benn does what Jamie Benn does. The next year, they make it to it again and lose to the Oilers. And then this past year, they lose to the Oilers. And now the question is, how can they get better on defense? Right? So they went from how can they get better on offense to now how can they get better on defense? I just feel like that's ironic because I think you need both. And I don't think the Stars are building to actually do that. It is a much more, what do we need? It's more, the way the Stars have gone about building their roster in recent years is reactionary. And reactionary in sports is not good. Reactionary is, oh, we need that. But by the time you get that, you have another problem. By the time you actually get to build out this blue line, you're probably going to lose some of your offensive firepower. And you won't have enough offensive firepower to win. And then by the time you build that up, you won't have enough defensive stopgap. And it's just going to continue to be cyclical because you're addressing what you need right now instead of what you're going to need in the future. And I think that's always been a lot of teams' problems, is that if you don't have a presence like McDavid or Draisaitl or an incredibly good player that you know is going to be very good in the future, you cannot build in reactionary steps. You can with the Oilers, because I know they need goaltending. And I think if they were to add a goaltend and react to that, they're fine, because their offense isn't going to get worse. Even if it gets slightly worse, it's not going to get that much worse, because you have two of the best players in the sport. The Stars do not have that luxury. We can talk about Rantanen, but he did struggle against the Oilers. We can talk about the rest of their offense, which was amazing. But if you take a couple pieces away from the offense, Granlund, who had an amazing big game in the playoffs, and you take away some of these pieces, eventually you get to the point where your offense is now what you need. And I think when you build a team that is extremely good, it's because you're building it all at the same time. You're building your offense up as you're building your defense up. It's not a replacement of what you're caring about in the offseason. It's more of a understanding that both are necessary and additions are always needed on both sides. And I think that's the problem the Stars have had, is that they continue to only prioritize. Now, the good thing is that you have Ottinger, right? So addressing goalie is not necessarily a big concern. But now it's offense or defense. And again, we've gone back and forth on this over the last 3 years. And I think that if the Stars are not careful, the pendulum will swing in the other way and they won't be able to win because of the other side not being able to give what you need to win a Stanley Cup.
I won't say they're reactionary. I think they were reactionary to a point, and now they're getting better, because before, like 2 years ago, they were drafting defensemen as much as they could. Now I think they're getting a little bit more even. But and to talk about the offense defense, you make a great point going back and forth. I think there's a medium that can be achieved. I just don't have the NHL tacticianalness to explain it. I think there's a way where the forwards, because what I heard with DeBoer is the forwards would get in, get out as fast as they could, and they'll try to pass it up. And with this D line, you really can't trust them to hold the puck. That is what doomed them during that first trip to the Western Conference Finals. Yes, Jamie Benn did what he did, but the previous game is when Ryan Suter messed up a puck, and that led to a game-tying goal in the final few seconds. So I'm interested to see what Gulatzin does and what he saw. This is a great point made by people of just talking about how Gulatzin saw what Edmonton did to really dismantle the Stars. Because they were competitive in the beginning, but then Edmonton kind of took over and advanced both times the past 2 years, and Gulatzin was part of that. So what did he see, and how is he going to change that? For Grunland, I think it would have been great if they could have kept him, but to me, that is where you finally go into Maverick Bourque and see what he can do. And I don't see him taking Grunland's spot, but that does fill a forward spot that they also lost with Marchment. And there's also Oscar Beck. So that to me is where Maverick Bourque and Logan Stankoven were looked as guys that, these are going to be the next great forwards. They used Stankoven to get Rantanen to help them now more than Stoyankoven would compared to Rantanen. And now it's, okay, let's see what Maverick Bourque does. And I am interested to see what happens to Jason Robertson. I think that's a big question, because he is a great scorer in the regular season, but struggles in the playoffs. And you could possibly move him and his cap situation to get a better blue line and sacrifice that offense that he provides in the regular season. It still needs to be proven in the postseason.
Yeah, I have my doubts. We'll wait and see. I do hope that they build a roster that is going to be able to win a cup. But at the same time, you only get so many opportunities at this. Making 3 straight Western Conference Finals is not something that a lot of teams can say. Making 4, even less, right? So, and you said the window, you told me before, I don't know if you said it in this video, I don't think you have, it's 2 years. And that 2-year window, we'll have to see whether or not they're able to complete it in then. But I have serious doubts regarding that. And I think their best opportunity may have been in the past. But we'll see. There's still time. There is. And I will eat my words if it comes to the pass. But I don't know how this roster is going to get to the point that they need it to for this upcoming season.
I think this is pretty much the roster. I think you do add maybe a different blue line member. Matt Dumba, I do think gets traded, but it's just navigating that with his cap and getting everyone. I'm sure everyone knows they want to get rid of his cap as he's taking up $3.7 million. So to me, this is, I say the window of 2 years because this is, you've seen Jim Nill take more risks. I think the Rantanen trade was a risk because you traded multiple firsts and a promising young player for Rantanen and then got him extended. And you fire a guy that took you to 3 Western Conference Finals. Yes, it was he put Nill in that position because the players were upset, and he basically put Ottinger on full blast. So I think this year I'm interested in what Gulatsson does. I really want to see how the Stars play and what we see from Gulatsson, and relatively a lot of new bench members as Steve Spott went to the Bruins, and I think a couple other assistants left, and they brought up Neil Graham from the AHL who was interviewed for the position. So overall, I think it's pretty good. It's just you're not going to know if this offseason was good unless they do well in the postseason.
Yeah. The only determinant of success is Stanley Cup wins. So, Sarge, if you have to reach that point, we'll have to see how it works out.
Let us know your thoughts in the comments. We appreciate you listening to Outsiders Opinions.